Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand to join us for the flag salute? Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good evening. I'd like to report out on our closed session. Item A was Conference with Labor Negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representatives were Micheline Meaglis, Lucinda Abbott, and Darlene Avalos. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. And then item B was Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release, Government Code Section 54957. Information exchanged, no action was taken. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, the approval of the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 23rd, 2016.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, move on to the approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll move for approval of this agenda and the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Jacqueline?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
And I'm aye.
Alrighty. We'll move on to Anna for the student report. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Okay, Aliso School. Aliso School's most recent 3rd through 5th grade activity day included a directed draw with Miss Figueroa, kickball with Miss Oakes, and a balloon challenge with Miss Morvai and Miss Perez. The balloon challenge involved students forming a hypothesis about which tool will create a hole through an inflated balloon without popping it, and then tested their hypothesis. This activity created a lot of excitement. And in case you were wondering, the most successful students in this challenge used a piece of spaghetti through the balloon.
I was
Aliso,
wondering.
oh yeah. Aliso is excited to announce that their own transitional kindergarten students' art is currently on showcase in the elevator at the Santa Barbara Museum of Art. As a part of their partnership with the SB Museum of Art, Mrs. Lewandowski's artists were selected for this month's elevators exhibition. Stop by the museum to see Aliso's youngest scholar's art. On March 3rd, Mrs. Morvai, their science support teacher, and Miss Manier attended an engaging professional development workshop on the inclusion of engineering and technology and the next generation science standards. Some important highlights from this workshop were the value of the iterative process in engineering and the ways in which social-emotional learning, academic language, and science standards are addressed in generating and testing solutions in a group collaborative process. Aliso is excited to share and learn more about this topic. On March 4th, Aliso hosted 14 volunteers for Read Across America Day. These volunteers included employees from many local companies such as AGIA, Montecito Bacon Trust, Westmont College, and Union Bank. They also received a generous donation of $200 to use towards new books in the school library and approximately 50 donated books for their classroom libraries. Aliso was very grateful United Way selected their school for this wonderful event. Volunteers enjoyed their experience with the students so much that they asked if they can return for regular visits. Aliso is in the process of creating a schedule for volunteers to read to their young scholars. And speaking of United Way, Aliso is looking forward to hosting United Way's Fun in the Sun, or FITS, summer program again this year. They were very pleased and encouraged to learn that Aliso School had the highest percentage of student use of the educational technology programs and the largest increase in academic growth during the FITS program last summer in Santa Barbara County. Applications for incoming 3rd through 9th graders are available online now or through our school office. Canalino. Canalino staff and parents will be conferencing March 9th through March 15th, which means minimum days for students. Canalino will host a COPLA meeting for their Spanish-speaking families on March 15th, in which they plan to assist parents in setting up Dreambox accounts as well as email addresses so they can access online registration this coming June. Canalino continues to grow and thrive with an amazing staff and parents to nurture the development of our 530 students. Summerland. 21 4th and 5th graders students attended AstroCamp from February 29th to March 2nd, with 4 volunteer parent chaperones and their grade 4/5 teacher, Miss Hughes. Students and adults had a wonderful time camping together and learning about science. Highlights included ziplining and hiking. International Potluck and Garden Cleanup Day is on March 12th from 1 to 3:30 p.m. Families will be helping to spruce up the campus while also enjoying an international foods potluck together. Special thanks to the Summerlin School families who are organizing and participating in this event. The next Parent for Summerlin meeting is on March 18th at 8:20 a.m. at the Summerlin Presbyterian Church. On March 21st, the 2nd and 3rd grade students will participate in a field trip to Watershed Resource Center. The students will learn about watersheds and how to protect them, sources of water pollution, solutions to pollution, and the effects of plastic debris on aquatic systems. Career Dress-Up Day is on March 22nd. Students will dress in clothing appropriate for profession they are currently interested in pursuing. This is in preparation for Summerlin School's annual Career Day in May. Save the date for Summerlin School's Science Night on Wednesday, April 6th at 5:30 p.m. Their first annual Science Night will include fascinating activities led by UCSB's Physics Circus, and each of their 3 classrooms will have science activities. The 4th and 5th grade students will present the results of their science investigations this evening. Summerlin School hopes to see you all on April 6th. Carpinteria Family School. Carpinteria Family School held their first informational night for parents interested in the school on March 2nd. It was the largest turnout the school has ever had. The parents enjoyed the meet and greet with snacks and then the sharing of staff and students, followed by a Q&A. On March 6th, the first tour of the school will happen for parents. There will be one more informational night, a day to meet with the principal, and one last tour of the school. On March 2nd, the entire school was treated to a jazz musical at Kate School. CFS thanks them for paying for the transportation. Conferences begin this week, and children will share their progress on the accelerated reading program with their parents. The children are working towards a goal of 2,000 points. When achieved, the students will then pick a gift to send to another country that will enable a family to have a better life. And they now have over 1,000 points. Children's Project. CCP is proud to share the accomplishments of several of their promoters who have volunteered considerable time for the benefit of the community and their own personal growth. One, pulling on all she had learned through the promoter program, was hired through Vision and Compromiso to work in the health window in the Mexican consulate in Oxnard. 2 more will be training with Santa Barbara County's behavioral wellness program to become co-facilitators of a support group. Yet another promoter became a U.S. citizen, and after attending an orientation at CCP, started taking classes at Santa Barbara City College to work toward a career. On Friday, March 4th, funders, school district leaders, CCP, community members, and 2 consultants met to plan a study of the effects of the Carpinteria Children's Project on the community. CCP is very grateful to the J.S. Bauer Foundation for fully funding the study, which will inform the continuous improvement planning efforts. 3 early childhood education classrooms, the ones on CCP's main campus, are working hard on the portfolios required for their upcoming evaluation for accreditation by the NAEYC, and more are thinking about accreditation next year. CCP teachers are to be applauded for their commitment to their children and the success of the program. CMS. CMS had an exciting talent show last week. There was a record number of acts coupled with record attendance. It was a great celebration of CMS's students and staff's talents. At the end of the week, CMS celebrated students who have been positive contributors to their school climate at our award ceremony. On Thursday night this week, they have Fuse Night for 8th graders. This is a family science experimentation event supported by UCSB graduate students. On Wednesday, the 16th, the 7th graders will visit the LA Zoo. CMS's science students just completed an investigative project in the field of zoology. They will be applying their skills on this trip and visiting many of the species they have studied. On the week of the 21st, the 6th graders will be visiting Rancho El Churro in San Luis Obispo County for science camp. Thanks to all the families who volunteered to chaperone and spend a few nights in the cabin. Meanwhile, CMS's math department is continuing to pilot new math materials, and their language arts students are beginning to study persuasive writing. Rincon and Foothill High School. Rincon and Foothill High School students and staff are working hard to make the most out of the semester. Students are diligently working on their core classes while putting in time and energy on credit recovery to recoup classes they have been deficient on. Staff are proud of the dedication and efforts of students to maximize the specialized educational opportunity. One great opportunity for our Rincon students has been John Daly's Key class that has restarted this past week. Students are actively engaged in a course to develop and improve social and professional etiquette. Mr. Daly delivers a high-energy, interactive teaching method that involves role-playing real-life professional scenarios to equip students with practical tools that will help them be successful in school, work, and life. For more information on Rincon and Foothills High Schools, check out our website, and to keep up with us, like us on our new Facebook by searching Rincon Continuation High School on Facebook. Go Aztecs. CHS. On Thursday, March 3rd, CHS held a blood drive in the parking lot, and the turnout was amazing. Yesterday, there was an Athletic Boosters Club meeting to discuss the spring sports. This Thursday, March 10th, CHS will be holding a college fair to give students the opportunity to connect with over 10 colleges and to help them figure out what type of college will be the best choice for them. On Saturday, March 12th, the CHS's softball program will be holding a rummage sale on the front lawn of CMS. The program invites you all to come and support the team in funding money to enhance their equipment and facility. Also, on Saturday, March 12th, the virtual enterprise class will be throwing a dance called Morp and NYC, where all the money funded through ticket sales will go directly to the class in order to help fund their trip to New York City in April. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, I'm going to come down to the podium, and we're going to recognize Danny. Come on up here, Danny. All right. Okay, I'm going to keep mine a little brief, but so tonight we're recognizing Daniel Campos, who's been a skilled maintenance worker for the district since 1993. All right. I'm probably, you more than almost any other employee the district has had more direct impact on every single classroom in the district, because every teacher in the district will know that Danny came up with the door latching device that enables teachers to keep their doors locked, but not but still accessible. It's a good time-saving device, a really top-notch security measure, and it's I think your impact is going to be felt for generations to come. But beyond that, Danny's had his skills can be seen from CCP at the early childhood with all the little toddlers and preschoolers with some of the furniture that you built. You're a top-notch craftsman. I've seen your work, and it's just outstanding. And your skills are going to be sorely missed. For those of you who don't know, Danny's converted the old wood shop at the middle school to basically a cabinet shop, and he's been able to really do a tremendous amount of work. We've been able to keep in-house within the district because of your skills and your positive work attitude, and you can get it done. So it's you're really going to be sorely missed. But I'm going to turn it over to Micheline and Cindy, who would like to say a few words as well. But we'd like to present you with this, and then they're going to say a few words, and then we'd like to hear from you as well.
Okay.
So thanks, Danny.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Andy had a lot to say about Danny's skills, and he alluded to the furniture that Danny's built. But what I thought was really special all the years is we had weekly facility meetings. So they were Monday morning, 10 a.m. And half the time, Danny would walk in and he'd have this grin on his face and he'd open his really old flip phone and he'd go, "Look at this." And I'd look at his latest piece of work. And my very favorite piece was the sorting table that you built over at the Aliso State Preschool, because it had wood branches for legs. So he could literally, if he doesn't have enough to do in his retirement, he could start a cottage industry building really cute children's furniture. It's really amazing.
Just today, Holly tried to hire me as a contractor to keep making furniture for her.
They're all going to really miss you, and I will too.
All right, Danny. I'm just new, right? And I'm here in July, and I show up at the warehouse and the office,
carpentry shop.
right? Your carpentry shop, and you didn't quite know who I was. And I'm just kind of walking around checking out, my district. And I walk in and we start talking, and then I say, "Oh, I'm Micheline and I'm the superintendent." And you said, "Oh, you're the superintendent." I took that as a compliment.
That's
Okay.
because when I first saw her, I said, "You must be lost if you're in my neighborhood."
And then, I constantly heard about you. Every school and building and office I went to, there was remnants of Danny here and Danny there and Danny all over. And that's a tremendous legacy. I also want to tell you that if you need somebody to market those latches, I'm all in with you. Because as someone who has worked outside of the Carpinteria Unified School District, I can assure you that there are many districts out there and other governmental agencies who are looking exactly for that particular product. And so if you ever want to get into a side business, we should talk.
Actually, I've altered it slightly. I've got the next generation ready to go.
Great. I could be your marketing,
We may talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also, just by the way, I have a problem with my desk already, and the screw got stripped out somehow. There was some kind of, like pressure, and I need some epoxy or something. So if you're in the neighborhood, come see me.
All right.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all your years of service and everything that you've done.
Thank you. All I can say is having that wood shop as a headquarters was probably the neatest thing that ever happened to my life. I had everything I needed, and I told everybody in the district, "You just let me know what you want, and I'll get it to you." And I really had a lot of fun doing it. So, no regrets. I totally love my job. Thank you.
Hey, Danny. Jolene's got something for you, too. I'm going to translate for her. She can't talk, but she'd like to give you this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, Danny. Hey. Well, I think Terry and Michelle would like to say a few things as well.
I was just going to say, this district is really going to miss you, Danny. Your fingerprints, your work is all over this district, from, just ramps. Simple, I don't know if simple's quite the right word, but, and to the very complicated things that were mentioned with furniture and things. So that part, we are just really going to miss you. But I just wanted to say how delighted I am for you. I've known you and your family really my entire life. And we were in school together, and it's just such a privilege to see you now at this point in your life. And I just want to wish you the best. And thank you for your contributions, as well as the contributions of your entire family. Your father, who retired from this district, your brother, who retired from this district, your sister, who works for this district, your brother-in-law, who works for this district. It's just your contribution to education is tremendous. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a wonderful run. It really was. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's take a picture. How's that sound?
Will you join us over here for a picture, for a celebratory picture with your plaque?
I think we should in front.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I was just going to mention if Micheline needs that desk taken care of, she better hurry up.
Yeah, you've got 10 days. Alrighty, we'll move on to item 3, another presentation on the dual language immersion program. And we have Miss Jamie and Miss Brittany here.
Yes, they're going to sit there for a moment.
Oh, they are,
but yes,
okay.
the
All
team is here. Just need the. So good evening. We're back for another glance at dual language immersion program. And we're going to return to this slide that we have shown you before because I think that as we've been engaging in a lot of discussions around the community at the different sites with the staff, with parents, preschool presentations, kindergarten tours, I think it's important that we clarify that we are not proposing a bilingual education program. There's a difference between, actually a very substantial difference between bilingual education and dual language immersion. So we just wanted to review that the goal of a transitional bilingual program, which we used to have pre-Prop 227, was a monolingual English speaker. That was the goal or the outcome we were hoping for from that program. It was a subtractive model and remedial to remediate a student from being a non-English speaker to an English speaker, and it segregated our English language learners into separate classrooms. The curriculum tended to be poorly translated instructional material and didn't necessarily have a systematic progression in instruction that we have, or we are proposing to have with dual language immersion. A dual language immersion program has a very different goal, and that's to produce bilingual and biliterate citizens or students within our system, with the ultimate goal, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, or actually more like 4 weeks ago now, for the seal of biliteracy when you graduate high school. We also discussed at that time that we are one of the only districts in the area that currently do not offer that as a option on your high school diploma. It's an additive model, meaning you're adding a language to your repertoire, not taking away your native language. It's for both EL, English learners and English-only students, and it's an integration. So rather than a segregative model, it's trying to integrate languages and cultures, especially in a district like ours, which is very diverse in its language makeup. The curriculum is actually the core curriculum. We still teach the state standards, the Common Core standards, and we use linguistically and culturally responsive curriculum and pedagogy, not only in a dual language immersion program, but that is our goal for all of our curriculum across programs, is that it's linguistically and culturally responsive, so that students begin to see themselves in the things that they're reading about, or the history that we teach them has more than one perspective, and that's our goal across the curriculum, but certainly in a dual language immersion program. We also wanted to review the 90-10 instructional model because as we have been engaging in daily conversations and field a lot of questions, It's important to understand why we have chosen the 90-10 model. It has the strongest research base for having biliterate and bilingual students. We have done an exhaustive review of the research, and part of the reason we had Dr. Pagan from the county advising us through this whole last year was so that he could be our expert and help us get to the research to figure out what will be best, not just for a dual language program, but a dual language program in Carpinteria, looking at our particular population and our needs. So 90% of the instructional time is in the target language, which in this program would be Spanish, but of course there are over 500 programs in the state, and the second most common one is in Mandarin Chinese. So there are a lot of different languages that are targeted in different areas. That would be at kindergarten. It progresses through the levels, so 80% Spanish, 20% English in first grade, 70%, 30% in second, until you get to a fourth and fifth grade model, which is 50-50. Now, in the 50-50 model, the students might have one teacher in English and one teacher in Spanish so that you can switch back and forth. So one teacher might teach math and social studies in English, and you would go to the other teacher for science and math and social studies, science and language arts in the other teacher. So it actually would reduce the amount of staff we would need to be clad, because that staff would teach 2 classes of kids for those subjects. It is also important to remember that the recess is in English, lunch is in English, children's creative project things in English, assemblies are in English. We're not creating 2 different schools. We're not creating a different program within the school for the general curriculum. Art might be in English. So those percentages are included in the calculations when you look at your instructional minutes. So our original proposal for implementation that you received in the Plan Maestro master plan that we presented on the 9th of February included 2 kindergarten classrooms and 2 first grade classrooms for the 2016-17 school year. And there's been a lot of questions as to why we chose that particular model. The 2 was because we have been advised not only by Dr. Pagan, but by all the programs we've gone to visit. Actually, I have to say they've gone to visit. I haven't been able to go. So the team has brought back that information that having at least one other peer to collaborate with as you implement, especially in the beginning of a program, is really important. And then also to have the ability to mix the kids into different classes as they go through the grade, so they don't necessarily have to remain with the same group as they go up. The second reason is we have a large community demand. We began holding meetings more than a year ago, advertised through the Coastal View, through the preschools, through word of mouth, and we began to get a lot of families who wanted us to bring this to you a year ago and implement this year in kindergarten. So we have quite a few families who are asking for a first grade implementation. We checked with Dr. Pagan and with other programs to see if that would be a wise move, and we got confirmation that in fact that happens in other schools as well and continues to be successful if you have a first grade start. So the advantages of doing that implementation that we originally proposed is that we would fulfill the need according to the community's interest. So we are a public entity. We come to the public comes to us and asks us what they would like to see, and that was why we responded to that need. 2 teachers, also the advantages would be 2 teachers in each grade for collaboration and partnering. I think we've come to you many times about the value of teacher collaboration in improving instructional programs and then ultimately student outcomes. And so that's something we continue to, no matter what program you're in, teacher collaboration tends to produce a much greater student achievement outcome. The risks of that particular model, as we discussed at the last board meeting, were the impact on Aliso school staffing and enrollment, the budget needs, and then there were some questions brought up about the middle school and high school pathways. So we're going to seek to address those particular concerns tonight and have had many meetings. So the impact on enrollment and staffing at Aliso. At the last presentation, the number was presented that I believe it was about 32 students might possibly come from the Aliso attendance area. Now, those numbers were just a little bit guessed on. We really don't know until we see what the enrollment is. So we've done some deeper look into what our interest list is. We have been holding an interest list for the last year that's growing, and it has about 100 families on it right now. And that those families continue to get email updates and phone calls about meetings and things like that. 10 families of those 100 are right now from Aliso's attendance area. So it's about 10% of the total interest. So I don't know that that would actually turn out to be 32 kids. Again, though, we're just kind of at a stage where we'd have to guess at this point. We do have 11 teachers in the Carpenter Unified School District with a B-clad credential. And as we look, as attrition happens and people retire, of course, it is always a good thing to have a teacher with a B-clad credential, whether or not you're teaching in a dual language program, because we are addressing a population that is, increasing in its English language learner status. We would need 10 teachers with a B-clad certification if at full implementation. That's when the entire program would be implemented. So the budget resources was again given to you as sort of a wide range. There's a whole range of things we could choose. We were giving you, here's how much it could cost, depending on a whole bunch of factors. A lot of the money that we could spend is in professional development, and most of those costs can come out of Title II and Title III restrictive funds. They would not come out of the general fund that other things come out of. We also have a lot of, we had on that thing that we could go to CABE again, which is expensive because it's in San Francisco. We could go to ATDLE again. This last year we went to Palm Springs. The next year it's in Sacramento. That's not something we have to go to. There's also the Santa Barbara County Ed Office is now holding twice yearly dual language collaborative meetings in San Ynez, which we have also gone to and will hope to continue to go to. That basically costs us $50 per participant and a sub, so it's not very expensive. We have and will continue to rely on the implementation models of neighboring schools and districts. The most recent visit was March the 2nd at Paso Robles, and the team was very, very impressed with the program available at that school, one of the oldest programs in the state and one of the most successful. And Dr. Pagan, again, an advantage of having him is he set us up with his counterpart, the EL coordinator for the San Luis Obispo County Education Office, who has a great deal of experience and expertise in the area. So there are experts around that we don't have to pay a lot of money to go to a conference. We can utilize what we have here in the local area. The contract that was quoted to you at the last meeting was a range that Dr. Pagan could be as much as $8,000 to $12,000. He could write us a contract at $3,000 to $4,000. It depends on what you would like to allocate as a budget if you went that route. He will design his services based on our budget. We just asked him for a ballpark figure, and that's what he gave us. There was no MOU or specified contract services. So I guess what we're saying is that most of the money can be in professional development, can be coming from restrictive funding. We don't have to do everything that was on the list. It's up to the board to decide what we're going to do and how you would like us to design the proposal based on an available budget. As far as curriculum and budget, next year we intend as a district to be an ELA-ELD curriculum pilot year. This year we're doing math. Next year we intend to do English language arts and English language development. So the dual language classrooms, should they be implemented, would pilot the same programs in Spanish. So there would be no additional cost. Pilot materials are free. So we would not need to purchase programs for an implementation. Classroom libraries would be the only cost that we generated in Spanish. So teachers in their classrooms have libraries available for emerging readers, and so we would want to increase the number of Spanish titles for those K-1 classrooms. And I estimate that to be around $2,000 total. So I just, this slide kind of sums it all up about what I just said. So professional development, implementation support from SBCEO. A lot of that can come from Title III and built around what the available budget is or what the board directs us to do in terms of a dollar figure. No additional cost for curriculum and classroom libraries in Spanish about $2,000. We had a wonderful staff meeting. It was an invitation that Micheline extended to all Carpenter Unified School District staff on February the 24th. And Micheline shared the background of the dual language immersion pathway. We realized we hadn't done as good of a job. Everyone at Catalina was quite aware of the situation. We had been, you all know me, I'm the Uber communicator, so my staff and the parents, everybody was quite aware of what was going on, but we wanted to spread that message outside of Catalina because we do intend for it to be a district pathway. And so staff generated questions, and the next couple of slides you'll see the questions and what they were from the staff. There was about 50 teachers in attendance from all the schools in the district, largely elementary schools, but we did have representation from both the middle school and the high school. And that's Micheline's very nice handwriting there. That was the agenda. And teachers had a lot of questions, and how great for us to be able to have the opportunity to educate folks on what we were trying to do and to address those questions and get a better grasp of what people are thinking and feeling across the district in terms of our staff. It's hard to see at this size, but the pink questions are most of the questions are marked with a brown circle on the left. She's a color coder, our superintendent, so she's obviously been a teacher. And the brown questions were those we were able to answer and address right there in the moment. And then the pink ones were things we need to continue to think about and toss around and come up with solutions for and collaborate together to see what the best possible outcomes might be. Interestingly, some of the pink things are questions that we have outside of dual language. So like intervention support, we're always tossing that around, aren't we? Like every year we're talking about what's the best way to do this? What are the best outcomes? What's the best strategy? How do we fund this? And those are things that we deal with regardless of the program. There's more discussion here of the different questions. I did want to kind of address one of the things that came up. The highly engaged parents might elect dual language immersion, and this is something that's if you work at Catalina or attend any parent meetings there, that I talk about a lot. I think that as a community, we need to really expand our definition of what does it mean to be highly engaged and what does that look like and sound like. And it doesn't look like and sound like the same for everybody. And I would characterize all of our schools, every one of them, as having a high amount of parent engagement. And it looks different in different classrooms and for different families. I give an example of myself. I have 2 children at the middle school. I'm hardly there because I'm at Catalina. I consider myself a highly engaged parent. I keep up on the Carpenter Middle School parent group minutes. I keep in touch with the parent group president. Is there anything I can do? Can I write a check? Do I need to be at 020? I'm an engaged parent, but my job prevents me from physically being on the campus every day. And we have many, many parents in our district who are in the same situation. I meet very few parents. I have 1,000 parents at Catalina School. I meet very few who I would characterize as disengaged from their child's education. So we need to be careful about how we define that and make sure that we're including everyone in, wanting to be on our team and part of the process. The K-12 pathway, it's in Brittany, what page? 19. She knows that plan like the back of her hand. What the proposed pathway is. So there's been some questions about that. And we would receive guidance from you as the board about, more information about what you would like that to look like or how you would like us to plan that. In Santa Barbara, for example, Adelante Charter School is a dual language school, but there is no, quote, official pathway beyond K-6. There are classes that students can take, and yes, they may receive the seal of biliteracy. And in Ventura, by contrast, a larger district, they do have a more specific pathway in schools, junior highs and high schools that are more set for that pathway. So the certain junior high has the DLI pathway and a certain high school has the DLI pathway. We don't have that size, so we don't necessarily won't look the same. Micheline, did you have anything to add on the pathway question?
Not at all. I think that. Thank you, Jamie. I anticipate that there will be support as the program develops throughout the years, given the opportunity to implement it, and that our staff and our teachers will see success and get excited about that in the upper grades in the secondary school.
So what we brought you was a proposal of 2 kindergartens and 2 first grades. There are options for implementation, and we would love your guidance as to where you would like to go with this. We have what we talked about as a continuum of options of implementation. It can look a lot of different ways. One option might be to implement 1 dual language immersion kindergarten class at Catalino and 1 at Aliso. So the advantages of that setup would be less impact on the Aliso enrollment, which was a concern that came up at the last board meeting. The risks, however, would be splitting that program across 2 sites in its first year, not allowing for that staff collaboration or intervention with kids as they move through the grades. As I spoke to earlier, the importance of having that teaming, that partnership in the first year of its implementation. That's not to say that should it start at one site, we couldn't spread it to another site the following year or the year after that. There's all kinds of opportunities for us to think outside the box and design a pathway that works best for Carpenter Unified School District. Another option for implementation would be 2 kindergarten classes at Catalino rather than 2 kinders and 2 firsts. An advantage of that option would be to begin small and create a small program with a strong program with teachers collaborating together with administrative support. That would be me. The risks, not meeting requests of parents who have asked for a dual language first grade option in 2016 and 17. I have a feeling that some of them are here. So this slide is also from the original presentation, but bears repeating that the outcomes we're hoping for in implementing a program like this is increased cross-cultural relationships among all students, parents, and the community. And we've come to you, I think you're probably getting a little tired of seeing me, but we've been coming to you about this theme, about integrating our cultures and languages. The PETA group came and we talked about simultaneous interpretation. We talked about, with Michelle, had an experience with IEE and how we continue to provide professional development from not only our staff, but our parents and volunteers and community members about the cross-cultural relationships. Learning experiences that foster the development of cultural pride and positive self-image, so being proud of one's language, not trying to hide the language and not being ashamed of your language. And we have a great deal of work to do with our parent groups also, encouraging parents to be proud of their native language and to grow and enrich that in their home environment. So we've actually had Dr. Pagan come to our ELAC meeting to talk about use your Spanish, read your Spanish, make that a sense of pride, a source of pride and something to be proud of in your family and to use it outside your home. High academic achievement for English language learners and English-only students. So the outcomes that the research have shown is that both groups are outperforming their peers in English-only programs. Increased parent engagement and participation, increased integration among diverse representative linguistic groups, and to make Carpenter Unified School District future forward and cutting edge and join the other districts in the state who are following other states. We're never first. California is never first, but we're following other states who have kind of caught on to this model and something that we can be known for, something that we can be proud of. And what I continue to say about English language development in ELs is that what we're doing now is not reaching all of our kids. So do we want to continue to do the same thing and expect a different result, or do we want to go out of the box and do something different to see if we can get a better result?
All right, thank you. I had a question in how do we deal with the discrepancies in class sizes at the upper grade levels? Because there will be class size discrepancies. And how are we going to address that? Because what I'm afraid is going to happen is you'll create kind of this elite class that only has 24 students in it, and the other fourth and fifth or third and fourth and fifth grade classes will have 26, 28, 29 students. And that's going to create some attention between, I'm sure, between parents, between teachers, between students. Have you thought about how that?
Yes, and that does happen now with the other small school in the district, that we have some of that tension regarding
Yes.
class size in the upper grades. And it was one of the questions on the staff posters that there was pictures of with a pink dot next to it, because it's something we continue to think about and explore. 24 is not a magic number. You can give us any number you would like or you find as to be a good fit for us to put in a revised plan. One thing that we discussed the other day is perhaps we propose that we match the kindergarten number with the average size of the other kindergarten classes. So say next year the number works out to be 25, 26, 22. So we make the DLI program of a similar size. But the issue is of the upper grades.
I don't think it's at the lower grade levels.
The problem is you can't really add students to that class after the first grade. So I'm not sure how we would solve that particular problem in this particular program. But Micheline might have a comment.
I think it's appropriate that we identify it and we recognize it and understand that in this particular pathway, because there's learning and instruction and language involved, that it's something that we wouldn't be able to avoid no matter what number we choose at the kindergarten or the first grade level. It could still be a smaller number than the upper grade class size, unless we're going to have a bigger number in the kindergarten and the first grade, which I believe is contrary to our class size reduction goals and the philosophy that we espouse here. And so I do believe that this is just one of those situations where we're just going to have to keep it in the decision-making process and acknowledge the fact that this is one of the features of this program that we wouldn't want to change, because then we would be bringing in new students just to inflate numbers, and that would be contrary to the purpose of the success of the students and the program. I don't know that there's any way getting around it. I just think this is one of those real give and takes on this one. There is, as far as I know, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't think there's a magic answer on this particular topic.
I have a follow-up question on that, because Jamie, you just mentioned that we could give you a different number. So why was 24 selected? I thought it was maybe research-based, but is there...
It was selected, it's about what our kindergarten classes are now.
It was based on our class size reduction to start. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody would love to see 20-1, but that's not necessarily what works out.
But do you see where I'm
we
going? Because
we acknowledge that
you're gonna tend to attract, and I know no one wants to say they're more engaged or less engaged, but you're gonna tend to attract, more engaged families into this program potentially, and as you go up the grade level, the other classrooms are not, you're basically pulled from that class, and those kids are going to be together for the duration of their school, their elementary school education. I can see some unintended consequences occurring at the upper grade levels, and I doesn't mean I'm against it. I just wanted to make sure that we've thought about.
Well, I wonder also, Micheline has modeled so wonderfully for us how we think outside the box and think about other ways to attack a problem. And I wonder if we might consider how would we support the other classrooms in the upper grades that might have larger numbers.
Well, ideally we would have lower class sizes.
Right, but the site could support them in different ways. So, for example, in fifth grade this year, I've allocated an instructional assistant to assist with math instruction because we've identified math in fifth grade at Catalino based on last year's test results as something we need to address. So during that portion of time, we've reduced numbers for math instruction by adding essentially a fourth teacher. So there are a lot of ways we could support the other classrooms to ameliorate that situation.
But there's costs associated with that, and when
the site costs,
there are costs associated with it, and that's I know that's what I always go back to, but ultimately we have to have the resources to pay for all these great programs, and that's we want to make sure. And I probably didn't say that well enough the last meeting. We want to make sure that if and when we do create this program and put it in place, that we're able to do it well and do it the best we possibly can, and then we're not setting it up for struggles down the road. And that's why we're looking at it, looking at the budget so strongly, and the budget component is so critical. And realistically, if this had been a district-driven process instead of, a Catalino-driven process, and I'm not being critical here, we probably would have looked at the budget earlier on, and we would have had this discussion earlier on. But we didn't, so now we're having it now. And it doesn't mean that we're against it. It just means that we want to be able to make sure that we have the resources to, and that we're not setting ourselves up for future costs that aren't accounted for.
Yeah, and I think the budget, as I presented it to you tonight, looks a little different
It does.
than
It does. That's
the one you got
it's very
to
encouraging.
last
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So I have another question related to the class size. If 24 was just based on our starting K through 3 class size reduction, just as we consider options in discussion at our study session on Monday, what would your thoughts and the thoughts of your staff and maybe parents be if we were to consider an option where those K3 class, that the DLI program starts with higher class sizes? So by the end of the program, as the other students reach 4 and 5, maybe those classes are more equally balanced. I'm just curious about that. I'm not saying it's a good idea. It's just a question I have.
Well, I'm not sure that you're ever gonna get me to say a higher class size is
I
a good
know, I
idea in the lower
understand.
grades. I don't know about that, just from a instructional point of view, if that's going to work out for a kindergarten in a new program to have a higher class size. But right now, my second grades are 26, 27. Third grade's 27, 28. So we will give the best education to our students regardless of the number of students in the class.
Yeah. So I think you can understand, though, that as we think about this, some of our concerns are you start with a class of 24, and inevitably you're probably going to have some families that move away or whatever. So those classes are never going to be more than 24. If anything, by the time they get to the 4th and 5th grade level, they could actually be much less than 24. So, I mean, we have to consider the equity, issue as well. So that's why I asked that question.
Yes.
I was just trying to think for our own discussion,
Yeah, and that comes up a lot already with the two small schools and the equity issue of those class sizes versus the Aliso and Catalino class sizes.
But they can
Right.
transfer in, and we can recruit students
Right, but
to some
they
of them.
haven't been. They've been.
We can put combination
and
classes.
and those are combination classes. So in theory,
There's more control over this. It's not it's not apples and apples. It's just something we need to look at and consider. I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. This just shows great support for the program. Yeah.
So you say you have 100 families or so on
Yes.
the interest list. Do you have a percentage of of the group that is English learners? Of those 100, how many are?
It's about 60-40, 60% EOs and 40% English learners.
Okay. And also on the waiting list, only 10% from Aliso. Have you done, being the communicator that you are, as much communication to the Aliso
The communication has
about
been
the
like in the coastal view for the most part. The board meeting, we did a board meeting almost a year ago, was the first kind of official rollout, and then the coastal view began to cover it. It's probably covered about 6 times since then. I think there's more communication at Catalino because it's been a discussion at Catalino. So I do not think we have done an equal amount of communication at the other sites.
Right.
The invitation to apply and the information about the possibility of the program is in every kindergarten packet at every site. Catalino, Aliso Family School, and actually Carp Middle has the information, and so does Carp High.
Yeah.
About the pathway.
Yes.
About the middle school. I'm going to call Gerardo out because I see him in the audience.
He loves that.
Okay, come on up, Gerardo. I kind of want to see, as the leader of the high school, how you see this pathway working as it gets to your level.
Well, it's something that I have to worry about in 6 years.
Right.
So,
That goes fast.
yes. The impact will be minimal. It's just meaning that we would just adjust the levels of Spanish levels that we would have. We would have probably Spanish for native speakers that we currently don't have. So the flexibility exists there within our current master schedule.
Good. So little impact budget-wise.
At this time, yes.
Okay.
Our Spanish classes right now are at 36 already, so
Okay.
it's really not going to impact anything at this time.
Okay.
I have one more question.
I think we have some public
Excuse me.
comment as well.
You just mentioned 60% English only and 40% ELs. How do you see that impacting the remaining classrooms on your campus?
So, what we propose, I don't think it would have an impact because we propose that we would do 30% ELs in terms of pulling from a lottery, 30% EOs, and then in the middle there, or a third. It works, 33 and a third. The middle third would be bilingual because we have a lot of bilingual families.
Okay, so that's not, I just misunderstood what you said.
That's
I was
the interest list.
That's the
yeah.
interest, yes, got it.
There's a lot of, quite frankly, hysteria about a wait list and people not being on a wait list. There's no wait list. The process is the invitation to apply and then a lottery. There's not a wait list. That's just an interest list, meaning folks who have come to the interest meetings that we've been holding this last year. They put their phone number, their email address, and kind of stay up to date on what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
So it's going to be 1/3 English speakers, 1/3 bilingual, and 1/3 English learners.
That's what we propose to you, yes.
I think we have some public comment as well.
We do.
Do you want me to come up and read those? How many do we have?
12.
12, all right.
12. And on this item.
Yeah, here, I'll get them.
Do you want a few? You don't like my voice?
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's my Kim Carnes invitation.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 12.
Do you want to do them at 3 minutes?
Yeah, so 12 people at 3 minutes each is 36 minutes. So just keep that in. We're going to give you 3 minutes, but you don't have to use it all. So we'll start with Casey Balch. And then if John Steinman can get in the bullpen, followed by Rachel Gahan. Gahan? Gan, okay, sorry.
Good evening. I'm here again to talk about the dual language immersion plan. Feels like you guys have had a lot of time to look through it. I think the biggest concerns for me, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of pink dots still up on that form. A program this comprehensive that's going to be essentially a 13-year program for our kids shouldn't have pink dots. There shouldn't be unanswered questions. You've talked about the class size issues it's going to raise. If we split it into thirds, I guess it's a little different. That's changed. But you're going to have more English-only kids in a dual language immersion program than you would in a non-dual language immersion program. As I understand it, the district has no measure of how to determine who is bilingual as of now. So there'll be a new program that have to implement. K-packets are out. This is stuff that's happening. I mean, the first meeting was already postponed or canceled. It's going so quickly that we don't have time to make sure that the ducks are in a row before we start rolling out a program that the district's going to have to commit to for at least 6 years when you start this. You can't start it in K and then 3 or 4 years down the road change our minds, and then these kids are now stuck behind trying to play catch up. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, John Steinman.
Okay, I'm going to be talking about how things are kind of interconnected. Dual language immersion will bring more students and consequently no more classrooms to Catalino campus, exacerbating an already crowded situation. It has been suggested to move family school to the Aliso campus as a mitigation. This, however, would create crowding problems at Aliso. These problems include inadequate parking, an NPR that is too small, a cafeteria that is too small, lack of green area, and not enough pull-out rooms. This just solves Catalino's problem at the expense of Aliso. The parents of Family School have for some time been pushing for a better solution. We would like to place the same buildings on the undeveloped and unused portion of the main school property as would have been placed on either Catalina or Aliso. This would allow Family School to continue its program and possibly expand in the future without constraining either Catalina or Aliso. I am asking you to direct the planners and architects to at least consider this option. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rachel Gahn, followed by Jessica Meyer.
Hi, I have a kindergartner now at Catalina, and I strongly support the program. I'd love to see my daughter start next year in the first grade. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jessica Meyer. Oh, Mayor, sorry. Followed by Casey Gritt and Kate Bridgeford.
Hi, I have 3 daughters. Then my oldest will start Catalina next year, or kindergarten next year. And I'm in strong support of the dual immersion program. I really hope you guys can get it started and we can get her in there. I feel like there's a huge amount of community support for it, and it's going to happen at some point. And I would just feel really disappointed if my oldest missed out and the other ones got in there. And I know you want to plan it right and you want to get it perfect before you start it, but I don't think that's possible. I think you work out the kinks as you go, and I just want to say, you know, we'd be really disappointed if you didn't do it. Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Casey Gritt, and I'd like to express my gratitude to the school board for embarking upon the district-wide dual immersion program. This is an exciting possibility for our community. My husband Matt and I have 2 boys, one currently in kinder and the other will be entering kindergarten next fall. When I found out about the dual immersion pathway over a year ago, I was so excited for our community and for my family. Dual immersion is a progressive and rich education, something I want both of my children to be a part of. When I recently learned that there was some pushback about the program potentially not starting out with a first grade or possibly not even starting in the fall of 2016, I was devastated. Many parents have believed that this program would start fall of 2016, including 2 first grade classrooms in addition to 2 kindergarten classrooms. The demand is there. The district has qualified staff available, and they are excited about this. We want this. It would be such a disappointment not to see this through. I'm asking you, don't put off making a decision. If this does not happen this year, my children and many others whose parents have become emotionally invested in this pathway won't be a part of this program. Further, I'm asking that you listen to what the parents and community want. I hear from parents all the time how exciting this new opportunity is for our children. I hear it at my son's baseball practice. I hear it at the park. I hear it at our preschool. My youngest son is at Lou Grant, and the excitement about this program is amazing. I want this plan to move forward with 2 kindergarten classes and 2 first grade classes. The demand for first grade is real. Thank you for your consideration on this important issue.
Thank you. Okay, Kate Bridgeford, Leon and Dan Patterson, and Miss Merritt Martinson. Sorry. Pardon me.
Hi, my name is Kate Bridgeford. I'm a parent of an incoming kindergartner and a 3-year-old. I'm an educator, and I've taught in an elementary classroom for 10 years. Thank you for allowing us to speak to you tonight, and for taking this on, and for moving thoughtfully through the process to decide to pilot it or not to pilot the program. I do think it's important to move through this process slowly and answer these questions and all the pink dots, and it seems like you're doing that. I'd like to speak to you tonight as an educator who, in my 10 years of teaching, I've been a part of many new programs and philosophies. One of the single most important factors to the success of a new program is that concept of a critical mass. When a district embarks on a new path, it's essential that they have buy-in, not just from a few, but from a large group as possible. This ensures that the vision and ideology holds strong, and that the burden isn't carried by just a few. It's why I'm here today to ask that the district pilot 2 kindergartens and 2 first grades, that we have 4 teachers instead of 2, that we have 96 families instead of 48, 96 students instead of 48, and as a teacher that benefits from housing 2 kindergarten classrooms and 2 first grade classrooms on the Catalina campus, allows for greater opportunity for students in learning with flexible grouping between kindergartners and first graders, buddies, a bigger diversity of a peer group for them. You can disperse the cost of enrichment programs amongst 4 classrooms instead of 2. It will help those families pay for such things. And lastly, it captures the families who have first graders who wouldn't be a part of the program. On a personal note, I moved here from Colorado 3 years ago, and in Denver, public schools are all dual immersion. And I was surprised to find that Catalina didn't have one. We love Carpinteria, but having been in a dual immersion neighborhood, we didn't have children that attend the school then, but it feels connected. It's beautiful, and I hope you consider it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan. This is my wife, Leanne. We're the Pattersons, and we are on the strong support side of the ticket. I'm going to let Leanne take over.
So we come just, first of all, with gratitude. We know how hard you work and how much you get paid. So I want you to look around. The support is here. The demand is here, and you serve your community. This is our community. And the faces look like our community. This is very exciting. So thank you to all of you who have come. This is an amazing turnout. I'd like to advocate as well for the original proposal of 2 kinders and 2 first grades. My son's teacher is actually here tonight, and she has written you, I'm sure, of the encouragement that she's given several of the families in her classroom, the recent immigrant from Hidalgo, Mexico, and how this student would thrive in the dual immersion next year, accelerating her Spanish, and would accelerate her English. As a former dual immersion teacher, I've seen it happen, and it happens well. We have expertise, we have willing staff, we have the people. I'd like to invite you to leave a legacy for this community. You will be heroes for this program. I think the budget should not be an issue. As I've spoken to Aliso families, to Summerlin families, to Canalino families, we will fundraise to make this happen. The budget cannot and should not be an issue. So I'd ask too that I know the class size was a big issue tonight. That is a big issue. At Adelante it was a big issue. The classes got bigger and bigger. But what I have seen is that there are ways to, as Jamie said, to implement support for the other classes, as well as potentially you can add Spanish speakers at the 2nd and 3rd grade effectively. So it's just something to look at. I don't want that to be a discouraging factor. So lastly, we'd like to call you to action. We don't want this decision to sit on the table and stagnate. And I know many out here would like to see action. So we'd like to call you to action, call you to decision to make this happen for the fall. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marit Termate Martensen, and I want to speak to you as a full-time ESL teacher, but also as a parent. And so as a language specialist in graduate school, we had to study all different types of immersion models. The 90-10 model really stood out because it's a win-win for everyone. For Spanish speakers, they can hone their fluency skills, especially in terms of grammar, but also the 4 skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and using a higher register while building their English language skills. Likewise, English is carefully scaffolded, so English and Spanish fluency will be achieved throughout the K5 sequence. In terms of the native English speakers, it's an incredible opportunity to fully immerse in a second language, and we all know how critical it is to build second language skills as early as possible. My family just returned from living in my country, the Netherlands, for 6 months, while my husband and I were on sabbatical as college professors. And my daughter, she attended 1st grade in the Netherlands this fall, and it was phenomenal just to witness her Dutch language development. And she's now completely fluent in Dutch and English. So is her little sister. who's really only one, but it really, kids are sponges when it comes to second language acquisition. And so in the Netherlands, in first grade, you also study English. And it's amazing. I mean, they just thrive with it. So I'm very excited about the prospects of the dual language immersion program at Canalino, since it's such a natural model for our town. In this global world, I think our kids really need to build language skills and cultural awareness to be informed citizens. And finally, on a personal level, it would be my dream for my little girl who is adopted. She's a little Latina, to be fluent in Spanish and waiting until high school is too late. Offering the dual immersion track at Canalino is an enrichment for the kids, the families, our local community, and the world at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dan Rumbar, Bryn Pitterly, and Natalie Rivera, followed by Flavio Bonilla.
Hi, I'm Dan Runhar. I have two girls that are looking forward to joining the school. Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak to you all and for your time. I'd like to say that I'm really excited about the prospect and the impact to my girls directly that a program like this will have, not only in their education, but also in their cultural awareness, but also in the community at large. We have a community that's got a lot of different aspects to it. And as a son of an immigrant and as a citizen of a global environment that seems to be having a resurgence in ethnocentricity and a deepening of global divide or cultural divides, I think these types of investments where we can educate our children and promote cultural awareness and understanding are really worthwhile. I've been through a few of the meetings and I've heard some of the concerns that have been raised, and I'm encouraged by the fact that none of them seem insurmountable or very large, and I feel really positive, and I hope that you'll give it serious consideration and vote to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bryn Pitterly. I'm here to show my support for the dual immersion program. I have three little kids here in CARP. I have a 6-year-old who's in kindergarten and starting first grade next year, and I have 2.5-year-old twins. And my 2-year-olds have been in a multi-language preschool setting since birth, and watching their language skills develop right along, their Spanish skills right along with their English skills has been a truly amazingly unique experience, and it's something that I want to make sure that we give them the opportunity to continue with for the rest of their lives. And I don't want my 6-year-old to miss out on that opportunity as well, is why I'm also supportive of the 2 kinders and 2 first grade classes. Language is something that, like someone just said, it can't wait till high school. Learning a language as an adult is a completely different story. Learning a language from birth or learning a language from 5 or 6 years old is something that becomes ingrained in you. You have the capabilities to learn at 5 or 6 like you can't learn at 18. And it's something that we can't lose the opportunity to give our kids this gift. So I'm just here to support the program, and I hope you guys will vote in our favor, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Natalie Rivera, and I am the mother of 4 children under the age of 8. And 2 of them go to Canalino. One's in second and one's in kinder. And we have twins who will be fall of 2017. As you can tell by my last name, I am the wife of a man who came from Mexico at the age of 5. And he went into the ESL program at Canalino. And he talked about his experience of learning the language, but not learning it fully. So we joke, I learned English throughout, Spanish throughout high school, and I was able to read and write, but not to the extent of being biliterate. And he's able to speak the language, but not read or write. So I said, we're the perfect match. But, for our children, we speak both languages at home, but as you know, one tends to dominate more than the other. And what education knowledge that I lack, I can't really teach a 5-year-old how to read or write in Spanish, or to really be able to be biliterate. And I just,
I hate for her to lose out on that opportunity because she's in kinder already, and I just want to push for it to happen in first grade as well. I am also a nurse, a director of health services, and being in the healthcare industry, we know that is not going to go away. People are going to get sick, people are going to grow older, and more people are going to speak Spanish. It's just the nature of where we live. And we need to be able to support and advocate for those that are growing up, for our kids to be able to speak both languages, and it'll better their future and it'll better those of the people who we are serving. So I just really am pushing to advocate to start this fall for kinder and first grade. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alejandro Bonilla, and I'm a father of 2 boys. One is a preschooler, and the other one is in 2nd grade. I'm bilingual. I was born in Colombia, and basically I'm in support of the dual immersion program. To add to what my fellow parents and carpinterians have said, I am excited about the possibilities that such a program open for the children. Often I travel to Latin America, and while it's true that you can conduct business in English anywhere in the world, it is also true that I find that the executives and the staff members who are bilingual end up having the better handling of both worlds, understanding the culture on both sides. And so I think that's important. It's important to mimic what Europe and Asia do on this area, where you go and speak to teenagers there in Seoul, and they're ready to come to college here. They don't need anything to add to language because of these type of programs. And so as our world evolves and globalization becomes something that we can predict really where it's going, I think it just really puts children and our country in a better position to have these citizens who are bilingual or multilingual. So I thank you for your work, and thank you all the parents who are supporting the program.
Great, thank you. Alrighty, you guys have any more comments or questions? Okay, well, I want to thank everyone tonight for showing up. We're not going to take action tonight. It's not an action item, but we will. We're going to be looking at this and other things as they relate to the whole overall budget on Monday, and then this will come back to us, I'm sure, at our following board meeting, the second board meeting in March for action. But we really appreciate your support, your enthusiasm. It's quite evident. There's great support here in the community. I think there's good support here at the board level as well. We just want to make sure we're doing our job as the fiduciary responsibility in the district. So thanks everyone. We'll give a little break for people that want to go home to their children.
Is the meeting over? Okay, the second interim.
We're going to have a little presentation on the Hour Zero Preparedness Program proposal. I'm going to give that.
Thank you, trustees, and I would request your consideration to allow for a public comment and for another information item to precede my request for consideration of the Hour Zero emergency. If we can make a slight accommodation to the agenda in light of colleagues and guests that we have here this evening.
That'd be fine. So you guys okay with that? Yeah. All right. So you're saying public comment not on the agenda?
Yes, public comment not on the agenda to move before my number 4, which is 8 to proceed for, and also for number 5 to follow that before me. to add number 8 and number
Gotcha.
5.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So do we have any public comment not on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes, we have one agenda item, or one public comment for Julie Sigwart.
Okay.
Hello, thank you. I'm Julie Sigwart, and I've got one son who is in 5th grade at Carpinteria Family School. I'm also a co-president of the parent group at Carpinteria Family School, and we had a phenomenal parent meeting, this last week where, we invited in new prospective parents. And one of the things that strikes me, is the most people we've ever had. I haven't seen it, this crowded. There's always an interest, but at the end of the day, people come up to us and they have this plaintive look in their eyes and they say, how can I get my child in your school? You only have a few slots and, you have this lottery. And there's clearly a demand, and we should be looking to expand Carpinteria Family School. And I have a concern with, I'm also on the Measure U board, and our options as we've been presented right now seem to lock us into a very solid, there's no room for us to grow. And it's also my question, if we're doing dual language immersion on Catalino's campus, that's going to bring more students there, to a situation which is already very crowded. I know at their cafeteria, they can't even have the full school go into their cafeteria for, a play. The whole school can't do that. So my request to the board is that we look to the future for Carpinteria Family School and look to adding classes for that, and also consider that in Measure U. As John Steineman was saying earlier, it may be a longer process for us to secure like the site and main school, but I think we need to look to the future and, anticipate this growth because there is the interest. There's definitely the interest. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we'll jump ahead here to the proposal from CompuVision for a network electronics project. So I'll just read that. We're being asked to approve. The board's being asked to approve a proposal from CompuVision Santa Barbara, who had the low bid at $285,211.77 to provide an enterprise-level network that can easily handle thousands of managed and unmanaged, and bring your own devices, BYOD, as well as handle all of the district's existing systems, plus the future new ones that will be added with modernization such as district-wide voice over internet protocol phone system, district-wide clock system, district-wide intercom system, and alerting systems, surveillance systems, etc. These projects were all originally in the facility master plan. Measure U monies will be used to pay for whatever E-rate grants does not. So, do we?
I'll move to approve.
All right.
Second.
Okay. I think it was a very good proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Yep.
Aaron. It was very. I think you did a really comprehensive job of putting together your bid package. So and I think you got a lot of bang for your buck here. Yeah.
Yep.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that as we are talking about budget so much lately, it's really nice to know that we do qualify for E-rate
Quite a bit of
monies.
it, yeah.
How much we'll really get, we don't know, but it could be a
when we
significant
get it.
amount of that. And then this is also in the Measure U
Yeah.
plan, so this is not our just our regular budget that we're
fund
looking at, general
money,
fund
yeah.
budget. So anyway, it is a great proposal, so thank you for all the work on that.
Yeah. All right. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll come back to our Hour Zero proposal.
Thank you, trustees. This evening, I present to you the opportunity to adopt and approve implementing Hour Zero as the district's emergency preparedness program. This is a highly robust, comprehensive program that even includes lesson plans and a trustee module. It covers everything from what we say in English, I think, is called soup to nuts. In other words, it covers the program, the data tracking. It covers protocols, procedures, the training, the implementation support modules, a risk assessment, coming to work with our schools, and conducting simulation activities, etc. And so this comes as a result of the focus this year on safety and our district safety committee and our site safety committees coming together, which culminated in the report recently, last meeting when Barnaby Gloger and Jay Hotchner presented on behalf of all of those stakeholders. So I would like to request that you consider adopting this program, and also I would also like to ask that you provide me with subsequent direction, or if I can answer any questions or concerns that you have.
You have questions?
Yeah, I do, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and it is true, this seems to be a pretty comprehensive program. My only concern is timing on this, as we are looking at so many things at our budget study session on Monday, and implementation of this program, as wonderful as it seems to be, it is approximately $40,000 to get started. If you do the trainings and you have to do all the school sites, you can't pick and choose which one you're going to do, right? And so I just would like to request that we consider tabling this until our next meeting so that we can have a conversation. This is new money. This isn't something that's already been planned for in our budget. So my thought is, you know, we're looking at dual language immersion. We're looking at a number of different things, and I'd just like us to look at everything so that we can prioritize and hopefully get it right. It's my thought.
Okay, I'm fine. I actually I'm in favor of that. I think that's a really good idea because we're taking the time to have the budget study session. I think it's important that we see the impacts of everything, like you say. So,
would you like a motion?
I would like a motion. Yeah.
So I'm going to move that we table the Hour Zero proposal until our next meeting after our budget study session.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. The moment we've all been waiting for. We're going to have our second interim report. We'll give you 3 minutes, Cindy.
Do you want the mouse? I want the mouse. Okay, here's the mouse and the advance.
Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. Drum roll. Second interim report. Here's the document that will be going to the County Office of Education following your approval tonight. The second interim report is the second to last time you'll have a chance to formally review our report, our budget. The final budget review will be in June when you're looking at the adopted budget. So this is our best guess at where we think we are at this point in our fiscal year. And we also spent a lot of time looking at where we think we're going moving forward, because the governor has made his budget proposal for next year as well. So we have 1 foot in this year and 1 foot in next year going forward. So the ongoing themes are, we've been talking about them now for a while: the local control funding formula, the local control and accountability plan, the state requirements for increased contributions to our retirement plans. Still, this year's state revenues are exceeding projections, but the projections that the budget was built on were very conservative. So we're looking at projections that may show additional state revenue for this year in the May revise. Also, as you all know, Proposition 30 is on the ballot for extension in November, so that will also impact the amount of state funding available for school districts, and especially for us, because as a basic aid district, we receive $200 per ADA for that. And then finally, there's a state facilities bond measure on the ballot in November as well. That's the $9 billion, and I'm looking forward to that passing so that we will have an opportunity to supplement our Measure U funds for all of our facility projects. So the local control funding formula, we're in our third year, and a lot of districts around us are getting a lot more money. As you can see up here, the average or the median increase for in funding for school districts is 12%. Some districts aren't receiving any increases, and then on the other side, some are receiving increases as much as 18% in terms of funding. So it's interesting to see what's happening to districts all over the state. We, of course, are basic aid, and because our property taxes exceed the funding calculated under the LCFF formula, our funding is projected to increase by 5.5%, because that's the amount of property taxes we expect to collect for this fiscal year. So you can also see that right now our funding is not increasing as quickly as a lot of our neighboring districts. Also, I'd like to point out that in the LCFF formula, we go through that calculation even though our funding isn't based on that. And you look at the base grant funding, which is the amount based that we get for all students, and then there are additional funds allocated based on unduplicated students, our English learners and our economically disadvantaged students. And under that formula, we have, I guess you would just call it a pseudo amount of funding, which is about $2.7 million. So if we were an LCFF district, we would be receiving $2.7 million for those unduplicated students.
Cindy, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm assuming maybe you still do this even with the new funding model, but you used to figure, once we were basic aid, you used to figure what the difference is. Mm-hmm. I know we used to be about $4 million ahead. Right. What is that?
I can provide you that information.
Maybe on Monday? Or I don't know, is that too soon? I don't know if you've done that, so maybe that's too soon.
Let me look at what I have. I have information I did at our budget adoption for sure that I can provide.
Okay. I'm just curious to see where we are now and what the future might hold for us as the state continues to fund school districts, each year at a little higher level.
Well, what I think is interesting about the trend is that in this year, we're probably only a few $100,000 ahead of the LCFF calculation. Because keep in mind, there's been a huge influx of state monies over the last few years. And so every year, all that money was put into closing the gap in LCFF funding. So you looked at 2012-13, and they calculate out what districts would get, and they're trying to close the gap. So every year the gap has been closed by 50%.
Right.
So you can see that a lot of money's been directed towards that. So that LCFF funding was increasing relatively rapidly.
Right.
And as a result of the state's expanding economy, and also because the state had to repay school districts what they call maintenance factor, to where they had, reduced funding to school districts. So all of a sudden there's this huge influx of money that's been occurring over the last 3 years. And once we get done with this year, the maintenance factor will be paid back, and the funding will slow for LCFF districts. That's at least what, if you go to presentations on the state budget, that's what is being explained to us.
I guess where I'm really going, then you probably know, is I'm wondering, are we close to falling back out of basic aid? Do you think that's going to happen in the years to come?
My projections don't show that. And
Okay.
the reason for that is that moving forward, if you're using assumptions of less state funding going towards
Right.
LCFF, we actually get more ahead again. So no, I
Okay.
don't see
Okay.
that.
All right.
But, things change.
Sure.
These are just projections.
All right, thank you.
And of course, we're also working on our local control and accountability plan, which drives a lot of our priorities for our budgeting process. And as you know, we have a high level of unduplicated students. It's 68% this year. And the proportionality percentage, which is calculated under the LCFF, is over 17%. And what that means is that is the amount that we must deliver additional or improved students over the basic services. So we're looking at, okay, what are the basic services students get? Well, they get a classroom, they get textbooks. So what are we doing to support these students over and above that? And so our LCAP, of course, describes that, and we'll be updating that. And we're looking at that proportionality as we're developing the LCAP. The next theme, increased
This is
contributions
scary.
to retirement plans. So right here, you can see that for STRS, which are for our teachers, and PERS for all of our classified employees, in this year, we have contribution percentages of 10.73% or 11.85%. You go out 6 years to 2020, 2021, and STRS increase is over 19%, and for PERS it's a little over 20%. So we have a significant increase in the district contribution based on salaries every year, and we have to look at all of that in our multi-year projections because it's a required expenditure. We don't have a choice about that.
But it's not a 19% increase. It's actually more
No.
like a 100%
Yes.
increase. Yeah.
No, I don't mean that. I'm saying it's 19% of salaries.
Salary, yeah.
Yes.
That's a lot of people don't get that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's the different. It's not a 9% increase.
So, do you have a dollar figure of what our additional expenditures are from last year till?
I can get that for you. I think that
I think we do,
it's pretty
it's
easy.
about $1 million is what I remember.
And I have a calculation on part of the multi-year
Yeah.
projections where I apply that. But I can get that for you.
And then on the PERS section, you also have to add in Social Security as well.
Correct.
Yeah, but if you figure our all of our salaries combined, I think are about 18 million. No, 14 million, and then there's the health insurance. So
Mhm.
if you do 10% of that, that's it's a big chunk of money.
It's a lot. And you can see that in the multi-year projections and in the spreadsheets. We're factoring in additional costs. For the same salaries today, we're paying more and more contributions to the retirement plans each
I
year.
really wish some of the parents I guess
Right.
we have a parent here that stuck around. Because most parents are not, most of the public isn't aware of the fact that we're basically going to have to spend an additional $1 million, over a year by 2021 with no additional revenues per year, and that's the really frustrating part for us as a board, for the administration, because it doesn't go directly to the students. It does in essence because it's paying for retirement for the teachers, but it's not really seen.
Right, and it's a commitment that we're really pretty much locked into, and of course it's a function of both PERS and STIRS being underfunded based on the plan liabilities. So in a way, it's good this is happening because those plans should remain solvent for our future retirees. But on the other hand, it comes at a very high price. And I'll also add that our employee contributions have increased too on the STIRS side. So it's expensive. There's no question about that. So in the second interim report, and we've talked about this before, you'll see a category called LCFF sources. That includes state aid, our education protection account, or EPA, which is the revenue generated by Proposition 30. And of course, the biggest piece of that are our property taxes. State aid, that first category, includes our District of Choice funding, which for this year is for our 12th grade students only. District of Choice is sunsetting, but there is currently legislation that, if passed, would reinstitute District of Choice permanently. So that's an interesting thing to think about, because for all of those students, we would receive 70% of their base LCFF funding from the district of residence. And we have a number of students that come to school here from either Oxnard area or Ventura. State aid also includes what used to be our categorical funding, which is the $1,205,000, and that number stays that number in perpetuity, I guess, unless the legislature changes it. And our education protection account is $200 per ADA, and that amounts to about $432,000. And of course, the most significant piece of our LCFF sources are our property taxes, which are projected to increase by 5.5% this year. On the restricted side of our budget, we receive quite a bit of federal funding. It's the amounts are similar to those in prior years. So we have Title I, Title II, Title III. Those were all referenced in the presentation for the dual language immersion program. So those are funds that we can use to support our students and professional development. We also are in the second year of our federal grant for our high school after-school program of $200,000, and we receive special education funding from the federal government in the amount of about $353,000. State funding includes, on the unrestricted side, first of all, our ongoing mandated cost block grant, which is that $79,000. We have a one-time appropriation of $1,143,000, which is to start to pay off our old mandated cost claims. And then finally lottery, which is ongoing at $140 per ADA, or $316,000. On the restricted side of the budget, you can see that there are a number of programs that are funded by the state. Special education, we receive restricted lottery funds of about $92,000, and so that's restricted for instructional materials. We receive funding for all of our after-school programs. We are receiving a one-time allocation of educator effectiveness funding, which is a $197,000 that can be paid for over, or we can use it over 3 years for professional development. And here's a new thing. This thing is pretty interesting. So when we presented the audit report The audit report looked really different because for the first time we were required to reflect on our books, that is our formal books, not the books we use every day. We were required to reflect our share of our liabilities of STRS and PERS. And part of what we also reflected in those formal financial statements is that the state makes a contribution to STRS on behalf of school districts. We never see it. It never comes here. It goes directly to STRS. And so for the first time in our audited financial statements, we reflected a revenue of $539,400, and then there's an offsetting expense of the same amount. So it doesn't really affect our bottom line, but we're now required to reflect that in our budget as a restricted revenue and expense, and we'll be required to make entries when we prepare our unaudited actuals. So that's a new thing. Local revenue. Rents, leases, interest income, pretty much similar to what we had last year. We also receive a significant amount of funding for the Carpinteria Children's Project from foundations and other entities, and that's about $916,000. And then also local revenues, we purchased 2 school buses, and so those are being financed, and so the proceeds from that financing are reflected in revenue, and they're also reflected in expense. So again, no net effect on the bottom line for the purchase, other than we have to make lease payments every year for the next 7 years. So on the expenses, for this budget year, salaries are status quo right now. They're just what's based on the current salary schedule. We're still negotiating with our bargaining partners. Step and column has been budgeted. And here's where you see the total cost of statutory benefits. So you saw how high PERS and STRS are. Now you're adding in for classified Social Security for both groups, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, and Medicare. So those are significant components to our benefit costs. Health insurance, fully paid for our families this year. The amount is $17,555. The plan was revised during negotiations with our bargaining partners at the end of last year, and that reduced premiums, so our overall increase was about 1.6%, which was quite a bit less than our projected increase for, if we kept the same plan, it would have been more like 6%. There's the school buses and the lease payments, all reflected in the budget. And then transfers to other funds, the State Preschool Fund 12 to cover the shortfall. Our expenditures for operating the program are a little higher than the revenues that we receive from the state. Our transfer into the Deferred Maintenance Fund for maintenance projects, Fund 14. Our transfer to the Cafeteria Fund, which is Fund 13, $130,000. So we're projecting a lower transfer this year than we had last year, which was a little over $200,000. So I think that's good. Our staff are working really hard. And then transfer to Fund 63, which is our early childhood education programs. Those are fee-based. We also receive funding from foundations for scholarships. So we transfer $372,000 from Carpinteria Children's Project, which is in the restricted budget, to Fund 63. And here's what everything looks like. You can see here's the unrestricted fund from last year. It had an operating deficit of $944,000. You can see both the unrestricted and restricted portions of the operating fund for this year. So the unrestricted shows an excess of revenues over expenditures of $322,000. Restricted, a slight increase of $33,000. And we'll talk about that a little bit more.
It's important to point out that the reason we have an increase is because we had that one-time
Right. We're going to get there.
influx. Okay, all right.
We're going to get there. In fact, no, it's too many slides. But yeah, we had a lot of one-time money in this year. So we're actually have a structural deficit. It's not very different from what we had last year when we finished the year. So here are the most significant changes from between first interim, which was presented to you in December, and now. At first interim, we had a net increase in fund balance, and this is only the unrestricted fund of $14,716. The most significant changes, we received additional district of choice funding. We're still receiving back payments on our MA money, which is our Medi-Cal administrative activities. So this is from 2012-13. So that money's still coming in, but it's not ongoing either. We're way behind. It's nice to have it, though. And reimbursement for our bond election expense. So this was something that we were able to reimburse ourselves for out of our bond sale. So that's helpful as well. On the expenditure side, there's some normal changes in salaries and benefits. What I would point out to you, the most significant items here is this decreased contribution to special education of $188,000. That was surprising, that our contribution actually decreased. And the reason for that is that our expenses in the pay-as-you-go programs, the regional programs, decreased by about $200,000. And mostly that's in the pre-K. So in looking at that, that's good news for us for this year, but every year it's different, and it's difficult to project what will occur next year.
Cindy, I have just a clarification on the where you say increased certificated salaries and also increased benefits, but they're a negative number. Does that mean that
it's reducing our net income, if you want to put it. So we started with net increase. So if we have higher salaries or higher benefits, that's reducing it, right?
Okay.
Am I answering your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And those are just normal things. Like we added some extra periods for some teachers, six periods. We had, additional, stipends that were budgeted and that sort of thing. There's nothing unusual in there. We haven't added any positions during the year.
No, it's just a formatting thing. It could be because
Okay.
it says it's already an expenditure, but then it looks like a negative expenditure. Right. That's just the way it came across.
Okay, so let me think about how I can make that less confusing.
Well, yeah, it's just I think
in the future.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Okay, but I
understand.
But you understand.
I understand what it means.
Right. So so obviously, if we have a lower contribution to special education, we're increasing our net balance by that $188,000. So that we get to the net increase in fund balance at second interim of the $322,000.
Yeah, I just think it'd be easier if when you format that, because they're already expenditures, so you're going to be spending that money.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a negative number, if it's a negative number, we're assuming that because it's an expenditure, it's a cost.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but if it's a positive number, I don't know. I just think it would be clear. It's not that clear.
Right. No, I understand, and I realize that I am such an accountant that I forget sometimes. So let me think about that and find a way maybe in the future to make that more understandable. Okay, so fiscal challenges in future years. So we face a lot of issues, and we've talked about some of them already. Our property taxes, where that's the largest source of our revenue, and it's dependent on the economy, and it's dependent on our housing market. And so that can fluctuate quite a bit. And I actually have a slide showing what our property taxes increases have been over the years, which I found really interesting because it's all over the place. Our fixed expenditures continue to increase. We already talked about contributions to retirement plans, and of course, health insurance is also increasing every year as well. We need to continue to implement our Common Core state standards and our next generation science standards. So we're constantly wanting to invest in our teachers and in our practices to improve instruction. We're looking at textbook adoptions, and we'll be talking about that at our study session on Monday. Because right now staff are working on math, and then we're looking at English language arts, and then after that, science. So textbooks are expensive. We have a priority on safety, and you saw that tonight with the Hour Zero program, but there's a lot of different things that staff are working on, and some of that requires additional resources, not everything. Special education, it's a challenge to provide the services we need to provide for our students with special needs, and we need to find ways to do that. And then finally, food services. We're always walking a balance between having really healthy, appetizing meals and trying to manage the budget at the same time. So that I think is a challenge and will continue to be a challenge as we go forward. And of course, we still need to provide great programs to support student learning and provide competitive compensation to staff. So we're supposed to figure out how to do all that. So this is the slide I was going to jump to because this shows what our second annual report would look like if we didn't have one-time revenues. So you can see here that without those one-time revenues, we would have an ongoing deficit, or what I call structural deficit, of about $940,000. So that's really similar to how we closed out last year. And that is our challenge. How do we handle that going forward? Another part of our interim report are the multi-year projections. And these are really important because we're looking at the decisions we're making now and in the future and how they're going to impact our financial vitality. And of course, you all, when you adopt the budget, you're certifying that you can meet our current and subsequent 2 years' fiscal obligations. So the multi-year projections are a way to talk about what those look like. I think it's also important to understand that these are projections. And so projections are based on assumptions, and I'll be talking about these are the assumptions I used. And the assumptions can change. They're based on either historical experience or what we see going on today, or maybe what an economist tells us. I mean, there's a lot to that, and they can change all the time, and the assumptions that we're using right now might look a little different a year from now, depending on what's going on. And I think it's important to understand that these are projections with assumptions, not forecasts, because forecasts are predictions of the future. And we're not predicting the future. We're saying, what will it look like if we're using these assumptions? And I don't have a crystal ball right here. I don't predict the future. I simply use assumptions to look at what could happen. So this is kind of an interesting slide, and I wanted to present it to you because at first interim we had a discussion about property taxes and increases and what should we be assuming for our property tax increases. And I think that's one of the hardest assumptions that I work with, because it's very difficult to project that. You can see that back in the early 2000s, this is 2002, 2003, when I first came to the district, our property taxes increased by over 8% that year. That was the same year that the state had mid-year budget cuts to school districts. So you had a really good thing happening with property taxes, and you had this really bad thing happening with the state budget. So they don't always go along together. And then you can see that property taxes continue to increase. And of course, this is what we now affectionately know as the real estate bubble. But you can see that in 2005, 2006, our increase was over 12%. And so these increases were all very high. And it was in 2007, 2008 that we first became basic aid, because our property tax level was so high that we had finally exceeded our guaranteed state funding. And then you can see what happened during the Great Recession. And you can see that there was a drop in property tax increases every year. And unlike a lot of other areas, our property taxes didn't really go negative. Yeah, you could see this little piece that's down below zero, but it was like less than 0.5%. It was very small. And then, they've recovered somewhat, and you can see that the last few years, since 2013-14, they've hovered around the 4%, 5%, and this year it's 5.5. So you can see that it's recovering. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen next year or the year after that. They could stay at that level. It's difficult. So again, the multi-year projections are working with assumptions about property taxes. So for next year, the assumptions that I use, first of all, for state aid, we would no longer be receiving district of choice funding. And of course, we still receive our guaranteed categorical funding. And secured property tax increase of 5%. So that's a little less than what we've had, what we think we're getting this year, which is 5.5%. But it should still be relatively stable, I think. We'll still continue to get education protection account EPA money at $200 per ADA. The MA money is not ongoing, so you'll see that it's not reflected in 2016-17. And all other federal and state revenues remain flat. And of course, the one-time money, the $1,143,000, is not reflected as revenue on an ongoing basis. So our revenue is decreased by that amount. Did I have anything in here for the one-time money for this next year, which should offset that, which is about $400,000. Then on the expenditure side, certificated salaries. We have retirements most years. And when our certificated staff retire, they retire at a higher salary level than what it would cost to hire new teachers. So we have a savings, and I used an assumption of 2 retirees. And of course, those retirees may also receive health insurance payments up through age 65. depending on how long they've been with the district. And no changes in enrollment, no teaching positions eliminated. Step and column increases are reflected in the multi-year projection. Status quo on salaries, except for the increases related to the sharing of health insurance increases which were negotiated last year. Statutory benefits are increasing for STRS and PERS, and so you can see what those rates will be for next year. And the health insurance increase, my assumption is that it would be a 6% increase. And out of that 6%, half of that increase is paid by employees. The other half is paid by the district. And the increase, the dollar amount of the increase that's paid by the employees will then be allocated to the salary schedule. And so that was negotiated at the end of last year. So that's also reflected in the multi-year projections. Book supplies operating expenses increase of 2.2%. So this is just a summary of what this year looks like. You can see revenues and expenditures, unrestricted fund, there's the $322,000. For 2016-17, when you back out the one-time money of $1.1 million, we have another 400-some thousand in the new money proposed by the governor. All the additional changes in staff compensation and benefits, you can see that we have an operating deficit projected of $240,000. And you can see at the bottom, our reserves, our unrestricted reserves for this year are projected at 10.25%, and then in 2016-17, they drop to 9.25%. Here's detail of our contributions to our restricted programs for this year and the next 2 years. And you can see that the main programs are contributions to special education for this year, $2.2 million, and then adjusted for inflation moving forward into the next 2 years. Now, for special education, there may be a lot of changes in terms of how we offer services or what we, how we reorganize the programs. So these projections are, again, just projections based on adjusting these amounts for inflation. And then our other program down here that's in our restricted budget is our routine restricted maintenance. And because we've received state facilities funding, we are required to set aside and spend 3% of our operating budget each year on maintenance. If we don't spend it, if we save that money and we don't, hire staff, or we don't have as many repairs, that money must stay in that account and then be carried over to the next year. And then for 2017-2018, pretty similar assumptions. I used a secured property tax increase of 4%. Now we're looking further out the road. It's hard to find any data on what property taxes might be, but what I decided to do was to talk to our bond people, because they built in property tax projections when they were calculating how much should be charged to all of the homeowners on their property taxes. And they used a 4% increase in property taxes. So for the life of the bond, they're saying if you look at everything equally, overall it would increase 4% a year. So that's a number. Other revenues remain flat. The one-time money that is being proposed for 2016-17 of $462,000 is not ongoing, and so it's not included in revenues for 2017-18. On the expenditure side, I assumed that we would have 3 retirements of teachers. Again, step and column increases for all staff, status quo on salaries, again, except for increases related to cost sharing of health insurance increases. Statutory benefits, again, increase for PERS and STIRS, and you can see certificated at 14.4% and classified at 16.6%. So the same rates that you saw earlier over the 6-year period in the earlier slide. Health insurance, again, a 6% increase, and the same methodology for sharing that increase. So health insurance, again, is a difficult expense to project. But our increases lately have been running around 6%, so I felt comfortable using that as an increase for each of the next 2 years. And then obviously we have ongoing increases in book supplies, other operating expenses. And here's what it looks like if you saw 2016-17 from the earlier slide. We had a deficit of $240,000. When you get to 2017-2018, that deficit increases by somewhere around $400,000, and that's almost exactly what the one-time money is of the $400,000+ of one-time state money.
But
so you can see
it also mirrors the increases in STIRS and PERS contributions.
There's all that. Yeah, I mean, yes, and you had property taxes increased by 4%, and so all of those expenses exceed the revenues that we would be receiving for that year under those assumptions. So you can see that we're going from a reserve percentage of 10.25% in this year. By 2017-18, it's 6.65%. So what's next? So the governor came out with his proposal in January. He's increasing funding for LCFF. He's again closing the gap by 49%. So each year the gap gets smaller, so they're taking like half of that gap. And, under that theory, it never closes, does it? But they expect to close it in a few years if state revenues hold up. The governor also proposed this one-time discretionary funding of $214 per ADA, which is estimated at $462,000, and that's what I have reflected in next year's projection. And of course, we've already been planning for next year, and we're going to be needing to look at our operating deficit. We have a budget study session next Monday, the March 14th, from 9 until 4 at the district office. And of course, we're also as a group, all of our administrators are working together to update the LCAP and also engage our parents and our teachers and soliciting input from them as well. And that's the second interim report. Any questions?
No, I'm just I'm incredibly frustrated because I see all these mandated expenditures that are keeping us from doing programs that we really want to do, or at least they're making it more difficult to choose between programs that are going to improve the whole school life of our children, of our students, and it's really frustrating. I got to tell you, because if you do the math on, when we spend about 80% or so, or 75% of our expenditures are on salaries. You know, and then you add another 10% for health insurance, and then if you increase that 75% by 10% every year, I mean, over a period, it's a huge number. It's $1.4 million over that we're going to be spending in 2021 versus what we were spending in 13, 14, or 14, 15. It's $1,400,000 additional expenditures that we don't have any additional revenues coming from. It's just really frustrating, and you know it's really frustrating for me because we have no way to derive more income.
No.
Yet we're supposed to come up with that much money.
Right.
And really frustrating for me. Very frustrating. Your second interims are always very frustrating for me.
I'm so sorry.
It's not personal. It's just because you know. Well, anyhow, anybody else have any comments?
I just have a request. I know you guys are working on updating the LCAP, but if you could just get us a draft to work off of for Monday, I just want to see the plan with the priorities, with our budget decisions, and I need to connect the dots. So whatever form it's in, if it's just last year's, bring that. I just kind of want to connect it. Yeah.
That's a good suggestion.
Anybody else? Sorry, I'm spacing out there. Trying to think of the
dollar sign.
I am. I'm
No,
just thinking of dollars.
dollar, like
well, I'm
red.
just thinking of the whole picture here.
I know,
and,
it's
and,
so frustrating.
You know.
And we're going to meet on Monday, and we have all of these great programs going on. And I mean, Michelle has made a wonderful list here.
I've got 15 priority projects being considered, and it's I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's a little depressing.
Okay, we'll move on to a more cheerful thing. We'll move on to a more cheerful subject.
Oh, yeah.
We do. Okay,
We're
yeah.
supposed to prove this.
You. Can I get a motion?
I move we adopt the second interim report as presented.
Second.
And we're not throwing daggers at the messenger. Don't worry.
No.
Oh, yes. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can move on to an update on all the good things that are going on.
Yay.
You got the better job.
Okay, I'll take advantage of it when I can. Thank you for the opportunity to present my superintendent's report. Briefly, we are being considered as the inaugural Get Focused, Stay Focused first certified school with our high school. So we're really excited about that and working very closely with Academic Innovations. As such, next year, what you will see as part of the board meetings is a superintendent's award, and I will be working with the schools to request outstanding students in the 9th grade Get Focused or the Stay Focused 10th, 11th, 12th grade classes. And these students will be nominated and moved forward to me to select every month, and we will have an opportunity to provide a certificate and honor our students with our focus on Get Focused, Stay Focused. And the students will be selected based on milestones that they have achieved. So they all can begin from the same place, which is their place, and based on milestones. I'm very much looking forward to that opportunity. I hope that you're receptive to that as well. Great.
Sounds great.
Let's not forget our Orchard to Ocean Run, O2O, on Saturday, March 19th, and we will convene at the CCP school in the morning. I believe the start time is 7 o'clock, depending on the variety of different walks or runs that one is participating in. We are continuing to work on our local control and accountability plan.
Right now, we've been focusing on the update, so analyzing the goals that were set and the progress that we've made, and then just beginning to set new goals, less goals for the new LCAP going forward. So I will be able to provide you with an update report in a very draft format for Monday. I am one of the 4 members of the local consortium for the Adult Education Block Grant hosted by Santa Barbara City College, and the county office participates. I sit on the consortia as a voting member, as well as workforce development and the city college. And so I'm honored to be able to do that. And I take this opportunity simply just to inform everyone that the consortium receives monies to focus on adult education, in particular to focus on adults that are typically not represented in the college system. So I look forward to being able to bring to you the amounts and the agencies that we have funded, which has been really exciting to do. So I'm looking forward to that. And then on Monday, in addition to our study session, Barber and Barber will present their findings and recommendations on Monday at approximately 12, between 1 o'clock, depending on the traffic and getting here from the airport. So we will be receiving their findings and recommendations, which will assist us and staff to consider what meets our needs best in terms of planning our programs and services for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, we'll move all the way down to G, curriculum instruction. And we're being asked to approve the single plan for student achievement for CHS, CMS, Aliso, Catalino, the Family School, and Summerland for 15-16 and 16-17. Sorry for reading all that. Trying to speed this up.
Do we move before we discuss? Yeah? Okay. I move we approve the single plan for student achievements for the schools listed here.
I'll second.
All right. Discussion?
So I honestly do not remember what was in them, and I'm wondering if there's been some update in data or anything or strategies since November. So I'm actually asking if we could have a chance to reread them. And
Certainly.
I know our March 22nd agenda is getting bigger and bigger.
Certainly. We can
Okay.
certainly provide those for you. First of all, in keeping with the new year of all of us working together for the first time, we had the presentations that the principals had provided. And given some challenges with the CASP and not having base data and data that compares with the new reporting system, we used existing data and local assessments. And we don't really have updates for you at this time. We wanted to get the single plans for student achievement ahead of the school site councils and ahead of you for the balance of this year and going into next year, so that at least we have some fiscal commitments from the school site councils and some direction moving forward, which is not to minimize your role. It is rather to say that we can bring back those updates then for the new school year. I think it would make more sense at that time or towards the end of this year, and they can revise as needed. They are living documents, as everyone is always reporting, and they are constantly being monitored at the school sites, where I think the rich work happens with the single plans for student achievement.
And I always see the single site plans as really the implementation part of the LCAP, where the LCAP is the bigger picture and the school site plans. So I know that they're going to change after you guys have updated the LCAP. But again, I was wondering if dual language immersion and all that is in those plans. And so since that would be a big piece for 16-17, that probably should be in there as well. But I don't know.
If it isn't, I think that my intuition would be that the site, in particular Canalino, did not want to take that bold move without the support. So we can always add something and take those revisions back to the school site councils. I think the schools would really like to be able to have the commitment to continue to move forward with their spending plans. And do you have the plans still? Is that something we need to get to you?
Assuming you sent them electronically, Jolene.
Yes.
So yeah,
Jolene did.
Still have them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would it be wise to just approve 15-16 right now, and since 16-17 is still up in the air, depending on budget?
Well,
approval?
the goal with
Sorry to
single
pick on
plan, not at all. So the LCAP is a 3-year plan, and it's always a 3-year plan. And we're trying to move our single plans for student achievement statewide to look more like the LCAP or whatever it ends up looking like. So locally, we wanted to do that as well. We don't want to keep coming back when we know that goals take time. And so keeping with that premise, we wanted to present the balance of the school year and an opportunity to get focused on the next school year with those iterations and reports back to you at a later time. They are combined in the same plan, so I don't know that you can tease them out separately. There isn't like a section that's this school year and a section for next school year. They're longer range plans and goals. I'm sorry that doesn't help with.
That helps. Anybody else?
So are you saying, Micheline, that you'd like to bring them back later in the, not necessarily the next meeting, but sometime April, May?
My recommendation to the board is to accept the plans as presented and then to receive updates upon a schedule to be arranged with the principals and I.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm comfortable with
That's
that.
fine.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to H, business operations, facilities, and warrants.
I move that we approve and ratify warrants for February 18th through 25th, 2016, as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 2 is a resolution. Anybody else want to read that?
I left you the law one.
Resolution number 16-748, authorizing the borrowing of funds for the fiscal year 2016-17 and the issuance and sale of tax and revenue anticipation notes and participation in the California Cash Reserve Program.
And I'm sorry, was that a motion? I didn't. Did you make a motion on that?
Moved.
Yeah, okay.
To adopt.
I'll second that. This is an annual thing.
All right, roll call.
Oh, Jacqueline?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
And I'm aye.
You better get this thing
Tired.
done.
Pull out my chocolate.
Okay, move on to item J, personnel, and the release of temporary certificated personnel. I get a motion there?
I move that we approve the release of temporary certificated personnel as presented.
I'll second.
It's never fun
No.
time or thing to do, but it's a statutory obligation. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 2 is the job description and salary schedule for the chief business officer position that we are advertising.
Thank you. With natural attrition, my practice is to examine each opportunity and each position and its relationship to the organization currently versus where it was at that point in time. And so as a result, I'm recommending adoption of the Chief Business Officer job description, which is a position that will report to me and oversee the development of business services and business functions as they relate to educational programs in the district. The salary schedule is less than the assistant superintendent's position and potentially can result in a savings of $17,800 to $35,400 depending on the placement of the individual. There are some changes in what you might have expected an assistant superintendent here to do. And so part of what I will discuss will then impact number 3 coming up, which is the Director of Human Resources as well. So as part of my analysis, I've removed some of the supervision responsibilities from the Chief Business Official and assigned them to the Director of Human Resources so that the Chief Business Officer functions as the business official in the district, supervises the staff of the business office, such as accounts payable, receivables, the clerk in the receptionist in the district office, and does not then supervise the director of facilities. You'll notice he or she would report to me in this case. Due to the Measure U and the focus now that I need to lend on these projects, it's appropriate that the director of facilities would report to me. So that is no longer in this job description. And then I can speak to some other changes as they relate to the Director of Human Resources as well.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
I move we approve the job description and salary schedule for Chief Business Officer as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll move on to item 3, the revised job description for Human Resources. Director of Human Resources.
Thank you. And so working with Darlene on job descriptions and reviewing our organizational chart and each natural attrition that occurs, what we found is that her job description that was originally posted was not as complete as it could be. And so she conducted a very fair analysis of her true work. And as a result, her job description grew to reflect what she really does, rather than what was initially posted in a pamphlet as part of the recruitment process. And so essentially what you'll find here is that the supervisors of food services and the supervisor of transportation now will be supervised by and evaluated by the Director of Human Resources, as well as payroll. Now, part of the reason why I'm electing to do this is because the Chief Business Officer essentially has an auditing responsibility, and so to put that person in an auditing responsibility and a supervisorial responsibility can potentially cause some issues there. And so I've separated them out now with the Director of Human Resources. And there are some other added requirements, such as serving as the designee to the superintendent as needed officially. And as I said, the warehouse, the food services, transportation, supervision, evaluation, and conducting employee investigations, and so on and so forth.
No revision in salary schedule?
At this time, no. Okay. We just wanted to do a more complete job description. What is different, to be fair, is that now there are supervision responsibilities.
Okay. Can I get a motion there?
I move that we approve the revised job description for the Director of Human Resources.
Second.
Double second.
I know we're on the
All in
same.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any board communications?
I will now sing happy birthday. No, I'm just kidding. Happy birthday, Andy.
Thanks for not singing.
And we're glad you're not hurt.
I am too.
Yes.
Yes.
I was swinging a machete around this afternoon.
Well.
It was good opportunity for injury.
I just wanted to say thank you to all the volunteers who came out for Read Across America and read to all of our students. Really special day and week every year, and best way for children to be successful is reading. So we really appreciate it.
I don't have anything.
All right. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. Who's going to join me in the O2O 5K?
What? 10K?
No,
I'm throwing the gauntlet back at you. 10K.
No, I think 5K is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I don't have anything either. So we have a bunch of things coming up.
Yeah, look at that calendar.
Next
It's a busy March. Okay, we're done.
Quadruple our pay for that.
Yeah, at least quadruple, maybe 10 times.